Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Monday Assembly Ride. Apologies for the slightly late start. Let's say apologies for this coming on live slightly late. Here we go. Just having a few issues getting my trainer connected, which you might guess from the feed. And as I was scrabbling around trying to get it to pick it up, but there we go, we're all sorted now. So yeah, hello, welcome. If this is your first time doing a session like this, then just explain quickly how it works. Basically, we want you to get whatever you want out of it, okay? So we want you to, if you want to ride hard, you can ride hard. If you want to chill, you can just sit in the groove and ride it around nice and easily. We've got the rubber banding effect on, which will hopefully keep everyone together. So either way, you go as hard or as easy as you fancy, really. And then basically the purpose behind these sessions is an opportunity for us to talk about topics that you guys are hopefully interested in, give you a bit more in-depth advice, answer any questions, which brings me on to kind of how you can kind of interact. So these sessions are intended to be interactive. We are here to answer your questions. So for the guys on Zoom, you can unmute yourself. You can use the Zoom chat. You can also use the chat in RGT. And then for anyone watching the live stream, you can leave comments in the comment section of the stream, and we'll pick those up as well. So basically various ways you can kind of get your questions asked, and then we'll answer, hopefully, if we know the answer. So yeah, this week our topic for discussion is why it's so important to have specific goals, and then also a little bit about how you try and make sure that you achieve them. Okay, now for anyone that is new to these sessions, just realised I haven't actually introduced myself. My name is Rich. I'm the founder and head coach at RIAK Fitness. We're a coaching outfit. We also have a selection of on-demand workouts and on-demand training plans, as well as our kind of sort of flagship enterprise, for want of a less over-the-top expression, which is our kind of bespoke coaching and supervised coaching plans. We do have some on-demand workouts and on-demand training plans, and particularly with the on-demand workouts, they're all about kind of sessions like this, where we seek to improve your knowledge as well as your fitness. You know, acutely aware there's plenty of training platforms out there that can provide you with sessions. Our goal really is to teach you why. Okay. So that's kind of part of what we're up to in this session as well. So the course we're riding, you'll see, is pretty lumpy. Trying to mix it up. So this is from the Tour de Suisse. Which stage is this? Is this stage 1 or stage 2? What have I picked? Stage 1. Yeah, so it's a bit lumpy. These place names may not mean anything for you, but it's basically kind of circling around a place called Egg, which is great. So I think, where do we start? Let's have a little look. It's starting Gossau, and then we kind of loop around to the hills and finish off in a place called Kaltenstein. This obviously isn't the full stage, this is just the last 30 Ks. And we've got 2 big lumps in it basically. But as I say, guys, if you take this session as hard or as easy as you want, if you don't fancy doing much in the way of climbing, just remember you can turn the trainer resistance right down. This is if you're on a smart trainer or a smart bike. You can turn the resistance right down. You just go to this trainer the sensor settings, and in the top right hand corner there's a trainer difficulty tab. You can just turn that right down. Typically its default is at 100%. As I say, you can turn that right down, so basically your trainer will provide resistance to simulate a perfectly flat course, and then you can just, as I say, poodle around, which is what I'm doing. So I'll seek to ride at around 2 watts per kilo and just sort of stay with the bunch. Okay, so you'll see me, I'm sort of mid-pack at the moment. My tag on RGT is RIAK. Okay, so give me a wave if you go past. And then yeah, otherwise just relax, guys. You know, we've got a nice, just coming up to a top of a little lip. Then we've got a relatively steady section before we start the main climb of the session. Now, this course may well take more than the hour that we kind of allot for these sessions. It's absolutely fine. I drop away after the hour, but if you guys want to stay on beyond that, then feel free to complete the course. But yeah, just remember, anytime you turn the trainer resistance down if you need to, and it also saves me getting abuse for setting a challenging course. We are in kind of Grand Tour season, so you're going to get stuff like this, and what we do try and do with the Magic Road selection is kind of pick stuff that's going on. So during the classic season we had, you know, the likes of Liège, Bastogne-Liège, Paris-Roubaix, etc. Now we're into kind of Grand Tour season. We've got a lot of the warm-ups. So last week we had a stage from the Critérium de Dauphiné. This week, Tour de Suisse. So usually those two kind of week-long tours are used as warm-ups for the Tour de France. So you would have seen the likes of Theo Gegenhardt, Roglic, what's his chops? The other bloke from Jumbo Visma. They were all Critérium de Dauphiné, and then try to remember who you got Tour de Suisse. Pretty much everyone else other than Pogacar, I think. I think Pogacar's doing tour of Slovenia. Yeah, I think Slovenia, where Pogacar's from, basically. Yeah. So that's why we've chosen this course. Just thought it might be fun to ride final 30Ks of what the pros have been doing. As I say, go as hard, as easy as you like. You want to drive on the group at the front? By all means, go crazy. I, on the other hand, am recovering from a race at the weekend, so I will not. I'll be looking to poodle around as easily as I can whilst trying to stay with the group. So, tonight's subject. So we're going to talk about kind of setting goals, why it's so important to do so, and kind of what you can do. Just some top tips really for helping you to see those goals through. Now this might seem like a bit, you know, a bit of a wishy-washy one, but it's kind of, as a coach, I'd say it's probably one of the primary aspects of my job, is helping athletes to set goals in the first place. Because it might seem like a straightforward thing to do, but often it's really not, because there's so many different variables you have to consider when kind of setting your own goals. Often it's very advantageous to kind of have someone to help you do it. So as I say, a big part of what I do is helping people to set goals, and then of course help with the planning, etc., to help them then achieve it. Okay, so we've got to start off with kind of an obvious one. And this will sound ridiculous when I say it, but what is a goal? I mean, that again, you know, that might sound silly. We all know what a goal is. It's something you want to achieve. But actually, when you start to unpackage it a little bit more, it's not that straightforward, particularly not in the context that we are looking to use it. Yeah, defining what your goals are can be tricky. You might think you know what they are, but I think if someone tried to pin you down, you might struggle a little bit sometimes. Okay, so having a clear goal, being really kind of on it in terms of how it's delineated, is really important, as I'll explain. You know, your goal can be event related, performance-based, health-related. You know, there's some very good reasons why you might have goals, but ultimately it needs to be determinable. It needs to be something that you can pinpoint when you've succeeded, you know, or hopefully not when you failed. I mean, when you not quite achieved what you wanted to. And often it's one of the challenges we have with a new client, a new triathlete or cyclist, unless they have a specific main event, which often they do. Often they'll gauge us probably with way too little time to get ready for that event, but typically, often, I would say generally speaking, people will either engage us because they've got a specific event they want to train for, or because they're kind of looking more for like long-term assistance and helping to kind of get to a point where they can set themselves goals. And as I say, you need to be able to pinpoint what that goal is, and that can be one of the first things we do with them, is just try and nail down exactly what it is they want to do, because they might have quite a few goals. That's pretty common. Someone will come to us and they'll say, oh, I want to do this, this, this and this, and often those goals can be a little bit contradictory or just not sit well with one another, and you kind of have to drill down into which are the most important ones and advise accordingly. So in terms of defining a goal, we have this really, I hate mnemonic devices, like I just hate it, but there is one that is actually quite useful, and it's making sure your goal is SMART. Okay, so that means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Now, I will explain what all that means, but you can probably kind of guess. But basically, you want a goal to be specific, and that's the main one, I say. You want to be able to say kind of what it is in certain goals that you want to achieve, not just, you know, I want to get fit, or I want to lose weight, I want to cycle more. You know, they are objectives, but they're so general as to be kind of, I don't know, just really vague. Like, how do you saying that? Oh, I want to lose weight. Yeah, but how much? We want to get fit. What do you mean by fit? You know, you need to really kind of nail down exactly what you want to achieve. So that brings us on to the second one, measurable. Ideally, you'd be able to quantify success. So you'd be able to say, you know, when I reach this point, reach this FTP, or, you know, I do this event, I complete this event, that's my goal achieved. Or if I lose this much weight, that's my goal achieved. So really, I think that's one of the areas where we have to work with athletes the most, I'd say, is getting them to kind of really kind of nail it down, make it something that we can kind of determine success by. Because that works both ways, you know. The athlete, they want to know they're progressing, and for the coach, you know, they need to be able to prove that they're decent at their job, you know. Because if you're not reaching goals, or you're just kind of drifting, yeah, it doesn't look great for the coach either. So specific, measurable, relevant. Now, I find this one a really odd one, because I'm not sure, relevant to what? The way I interpret this one is it kind of needs to fit within the big picture. So you can have multiple goals, small goals and then a big ultimate goal, but ultimately you need to make sure that kind of they fit within what you're ultimately trying to achieve. You know, for instance, if it's an event, any other kind of smaller goals have to work towards completing that event, rather than kind of a scattergun approach of goals and objectives. So that's what I think relevant means. I did do a little bit of a Google of that one actually, and I actually didn't find any of the explanations for that one particularly helpful. I think it's just they were perhaps struggling. They wanted to use the mnemonic SMART originally, and then had to shoehorn in an R. I don't know. but I feel like that one is kind of, you know, par for the course. It's relevant because you want to do it. So yeah, that's the R. The T, time bound. Again, super important, this one. Often where people fall down in terms of achieving, they don't set themselves a time limit on achieving the goal, and they end up just drifting, just kind of putting it off, lacking motivation. So yeah, make sure whatever it is your goal is, it has an end point. Otherwise, as I say, there's a real risk just kind of drift on through. All right. So the one thing I would add to that list of smart definitions of a goal is to be exciting. And again, you wouldn't think that would be an issue, but if you've been in the game for a long time, particularly I find with triathletes, if they've been, doing the sport for a long time, particularly if they're on the Ironman circuit or something like that, you can kind of get stuck into a bit of a routine of just half Ironman or Ironman. That's your goal every year. And, they can get to a point where it just doesn't excite them anymore. And it's really important that it does. It needs to be something that kind of really gets you going. Potentially scares the crap out of you. Something you're not sure you can achieve. Just realised I missed out the A actually there. so I missed out the achievable. And I think I kind of skipped over that one because it's, again, kind of par for the course. You're something to be achievable. It needs to be something that you can physically do. It's not something, it's like, I suppose one point that's really relevant there is time availability. So sometimes we have people inquire with us, and Ironman's again another good example, but they work crazy hours, and so it's more a case of, it might be achievable literally, you might physically be able to do it, but would it be worth it? And so I don't think it's necessarily something achievable in a literal sense. It might be, is it achievable and worth it, worth the cost? So sorry, there you go, that's your SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And then I'm adding on the next one, which is exciting. Okay, it needs to be something that will get you out of bed on those cold winter mornings. Something that kind of, really gets you going and isn't just something you feel like you have to do, because we do see it. When the event comes around, and it's an very early start, people bail because ultimately they're not that bothered about it. And it can be a bit of frustration for a coach seeing an athlete kind of lose excitement about something. And as I kind of already mentioned, you can get people going from kind of the same event to the same event over and over again. So one of the things that we try to do with athletes is encourage them to try new things, branch out, move out of their comfort zone, try and find that excitement again. Because there's just trying to PB over a specific event each time, can lose its attraction. So it has to be exciting, whatever your goal is. I really want to emphasize that, because I just think otherwise, what's the point? All this is meant to be fun, and if you're not kind of having that enjoyment, you're not challenging yourself with new things, it's just kind of waste of time. So just as an example of kind of how a goal can be smart and hopefully exciting, is wanting to get fitter, you need to determine by what metric you're going to determine you've achieved success. So with cycling, FTP is a common one. You need to decide what would be an achievable but challenging increase. 5, 10, 15, 20 watts, you know, whatever it is you think you could do and it would just about be achievable. But ultimately it has to be, can't be too easy. Although again, what's the point? Make sure it's something that you really want. I mean, do you care about whether your FTP is a few watts higher? Or is there another challenge out there that really kind of gets you jacked? And then give yourself a time frame to achieve it. So if you want to put, I don't know, 5 watts on your FTP, 3 months, get it done. You know, don't give yourself 6 months or whatever. You know, you have to apply a little bit of time pressure, because that again can be motivating. Okay, obviously how you delineate that all depends on kind of your fitness and other variables, etc. As I say, it has to be exciting. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't feel just because you've done one type of event that's all you can do. It's not. If you've done, you know, sportives, there's no reason why you can't take up racing. There's all different types of categories out there. E-racing is a really kind of easy access point to bike racing, and that's why I recently set up a women's e-racing team to try and encourage more women into bike racing generally through the avenue of e-racing, where a lot of the hurdles of real world racing are removed. So make your goals smart. You can have long-term goals and short-term goals. Short-term goals can be a fantastic way of creating stepping stones to that ultimate objective and to keep you moving forwards, particularly if your time frame for that ultimate goal is long. So if you've got 6 months to get ready for an event, peppering your plan with kind of challenges, things to achieve along the way, can just help keep things moving in the right direction. Just make sure those smaller goals are complementary and don't conflict too much. Okay, so that's, believe it or not, is all about defining what a goal is and defining your goal using those smart definitions. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, and exciting is the one I'm adding on. Okay, so I'll just have a little pause there, guys. Get myself some water. But if anyone's got any questions on that so far, then feel free to shout. Just going, checking the various chats, see if anyone's got any questions. Remember, guys, if you're on the live stream, hit the comment section in the live stream and we'll pick those up. Likewise, you can do so on RGT and Zoom, or just unmute yourself on Zoom and ask away. But that's goal. That's that's what a goal is. Next, we'll go on to kind of why they're important and a few tips on how to kind of get yourself on the right path to achieving them. So we're on the main climb now, on stage 1 of the Tour de Suisse. You can see it's broken up a little bit in terms of the group. Let's see if I can get a bit further forward and bridge the gap between the two groups. Always find it. Sometimes the rubber banding effect can be a bit dispiriting because you try and move up and you'll do like double the wattage of like one of the bots or somebody else, and you just don't move up at all. But hopefully this is going to bring it all back together. Right, so we talked about what a goal is. Basically, it distills down into making sure that it's specific, very determinable and clear. Now, what's the point in having goals? You know, why do we care? Why are we even wasting our time with this subject? And I think it would be easy to look at the topic before you're joining and just sort of think it's a bit of a wishy-washy topic. You might not get too much out of it, but as I said at the start, it's one of the main things we have to do with athletes. You know, it's really common for athletes to engage us and have totally conflicting events in their calendar, totally conflicting kind of targets. And one of the big things we do is kind of help filter that out and make sure they're a bit clearer in what they need to do and how they go about it. So why is having a goal so important? Well, putting it simply, otherwise if you didn't, more than often than not, people give up. Because if their goal isn't strictly delineated, they have no kind of goalposts to aim at. They have no kind of clear indication of how they're progressing or whether they've gotten to where they want to. You know, your goal shouldn't just go on for perpetuity. It should just happen. You get there, and then hopefully move on to the next one. A classic example of that, of course, is getting into the gym. More people quit after 3 months than at any other time. And it's because that's kind of like the perfect amount of time at which you can blitz something before it starts to get boring or starts to lose its focus. So yeah, usually after 3 months people quit. That's because they have no idea what ultimately they're trying to achieve. I do, well, not so much anymore, but I'm a personal trainer, and you know, that's one of the things that a personal trainer kind of has to combat, is getting someone past that 3 month period. When I did more of it, that was always kind of my initial focus. It's like, what can I do? What goals can I set this person to get them through that first 3 months so that their training becomes habitual. Okay, it's always quite a challenge, that. So yeah, having a goal prevents you from drifting. It doesn't always have to be massive. Now, I said earlier about it has to be exciting. You know, sometimes you want it to scare the crap out of you. But it doesn't always have to be huge. It doesn't always have to be some mammoth kind of project. Sometimes, in fact, and the same challenge isn't advisable. I said earlier about whether it's achievable. If you're going through a really kind of stressful period of change, you know, moving job, house, you know, personal issues, or you're really busy at work, in those instances, even the smallest challenges can be hard to complete, you know. I used the example earlier of kind of wanting to do an Ironman when maybe you've only got 5 hours a week to train. You know, if you're a really good athlete, you may well do it. I don't know. I wouldn't advise it, because really in that instance, the challenge just becomes a huge stress factor in your life. So whatever your challenge is, your goal is, it does need to fit into your life. Okay? But even if your goal is short term, it's only a small one, matter of a few weeks, whatever, still won't. Having nothing to work for can have a serious effect on your mental health and your sense of self-worth. Because if you can't look back at kind of recent months, weeks, months, years, or whatever, and you don't have any kind of definable achievements, it can feel like time wasted and kind of really get you down. You know, and I'd suggest if you're on this session, you're quite a motivated person. I mean, if you're spending your time listening to me, which is always a questionable decision, of course, but you're also, you know, spending the time on a bike trainer, pedaling along the Tour de Suisse route. So I suggest someone that does that kind of needs something to aim for. They like having something to aim for. I guess one caveat from all that, guys, is that sometimes you do need a break between goals, okay? Sometimes you do need a bit of a refresh. You know, you can't just perpetually go from challenge to challenge without any kind of mental break at least. And the obvious example of that, of course, is if you're a triathlete or a cyclist having an end of season break. Okay, we've done the whole session on recovery, but having an end of season break is crucial. You have to have a time where you allow your body to recover. You have a mental break and a physical break, and it's of a decent length, a couple of weeks, a month at least, just to kind of break up the season. But even between kind of smaller goals, sometimes you do need a bit of a break. Say just to refresh and clarify the mind a little bit, because anything done kind of to excess can have a negative impact, as can constantly moving from one challenge to the next. So I come towards the top of the climb now, and then we've just got a long descent, a little bit of a flat section, and then we're on to the last climb of the course. So I'm just gonna hold on till we move on the chat, until we get to the top of the climb. You guys might find it just a little bit easier to listen to what I say. It's not lost on me that you're doing sort of a 9.5% climb whilst trying to listen to me. Mixed results, but just remember, guys, you can always watch this session on demand. We keep it up on our social media channels and on the V Cycling news cycling. On our social media channels and the social media channels of our partners, V Cycling News, on their social channels as well. It's usually up for a couple of weeks, so you can always watch it back on demand if you really want to. And then likewise, guys, if there's anything you missed, you're not sure about, you can always drop us a message after the session. Actually, I'll just repeat something I called for in the last session. If you've got any particular topics you'd like us to cover, guys, do always hit us. I like to think we're pretty good at coming up with topics, but it's not so much about can we come up with stuff, it's more like, are we covering the stuff that you guys are particularly interested in? Okay, so don't be afraid to hit us with a message. We may well already have covered it, and then we'll just point you to where you can find the session. But yeah, there are particular things you want us to discuss. Don't be afraid to shout. You can hit us on social media, just drop us a message, or drop us an email, info@riak.fitness. Yeah, we do want to make sure we're talking about stuff that matters. Okay, just cresting the top now. Nicely still together as a group, I think. Let me see where everyone is. We've got most people together. I think there's a bit of perhaps another group slightly behind. Where is the top of this climb? I thought we were there. I was waiting until the descent before I start talking again, but it seems to be going on forever. Okay, still positive numbers. Oh, there we go. I think we might be now. Yeah, there we go. Now into negative gradient, onto the descent. So it should be a nice little flow down the side of the climb now. Or where are we now? We've done about 13.5 Ks. So I think you've got about something similar of descent. I just remember, guys, on on RGT, the blue sections on the topo, the dark blue sections that is, there's not really much point pedaling because you don't really increase your speed significantly enough. Well, keep pedaling, but just soft pedal is what I meant. So we've got this green, sort of yellow greeny section where it's gonna flatten out a little bit. Once we get into that dark blue section, you can really ease off and soft pedal. Okay, so we talked about goals, we talked about what you need to do to set them. They need to be smart and exciting. We talked about why having goals is important. Just giving yourself direction. I think another thing to add to that is if you want to progress in cycling or triathlon, whatever your poison, goals are crucial. You're unlikely to progress or keep progressing unless you have something specific to aim for, something specific to kind of target, because fundamentally your training will be a little bit aimless. So for instance, you know, if you want to get better at e-racing, just doing random workouts is not gonna, yeah, you might improve a little bit, but not at the same rate as if you followed an e-racing plan, which we have available, by the way, or, you know, just making sure that you're hitting the right kind of power zones. So having a goal kind of does leave on to an improved picture in the wider sense in terms of training and performance. I think if you are somebody who, you know, perhaps just likes to do kind of group rides like this all the time, you know, fair enough, there's absolutely no judgment, and ultimately it is about enjoying. I don't know if they're on there was just a quick question about the red sign next to the name on RGT. That means that the rubber banding effect is on. But yeah, having a goal is crucial really to improving. And kind of the most important part of achieving your goals, as we move on to how to help you get there, is just making sure you can see how you get from A to B. You need some sort of plan. It can be loose, it can be coach led, it can be off the peg, whatever, but you need some method of seeing how you get to your goal. I always think of it as like when I was at uni, you know, you'd have like a subject you had to write about, and it can feel really overwhelming because you're like, I don't even know where to bloody start. And it's when you start like putting in the chapter headings and you know, start to kind of build a framework, that suddenly you can actually, it becomes much more manageable, and you can think, oh, okay, I can actually write this. I shouldn't have left myself 3 hours to do it, but I can do it. You know, I know what I'm doing now. And so yeah, it's really important to have some sort of plan and some sort of kind of link between where you are now and your goal, whatever it is. But that, of course, again, needs to include a time frame. So don't forget that. Okay, when you're putting together a plan of action, if it's not kind of a specific event, do you make sure you're building a time frame? I think that's the one that's most commonly missed. So just give yourself an undefined amount of time to kind of build that FTP or lose that weight or whatever or the metric you're using is. Now, in terms of kind of getting from A to B, once you've got that plan, one of the things we always emphasize, and I've done numerous times in these sessions, we even did a whole session on it, but important thing to remind you is that once you've got that plan in place, what you're looking for in terms of executing it is consistency in training, not perfection. Okay? Striving for perfection will either see you disappointed or getting injured or ill. Okay? Consistency, yeah, if you've been to our other sessions, you'll remember, it's about identifying the really important sessions that will help you towards your goal. Okay, those key sessions that align with whatever your objective is. All right? And ensuring that you prioritize those key sessions and complete those as regularly as you can. There shouldn't be every single session. There should be maybe 2, 3, 4 a week, depending on your overall training load, that you really prioritize and you kind of do everything, do your best to try and get done. Okay? So just remember that. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself to do absolutely everything perfectly. Identify which of those sessions are most important and make sure you get them done. Everything else can be moved around or skipped as necessary. Of course, it depends on the training phase you're in. So for example, if you're doing an Ironman, it does depend on kind of which block of training you're in, but typically the key sessions are going to be those long weekend runs and rides to ensure you're able to manage the distance. You know, that's quite a straightforward one. You should be able to quickly pick those up. Okay, and then the higher intensity stuff, probably your sort of midweek structured workouts, are still important, but they're just a little step down in the hierarchy. So if push comes to shove, you can prioritize those long endurance rides and the long endurance run, splitting them up if necessary. You know, you can always do a top and tail where you do half the bike in the morning, the other half in the evening. You know, you're still accruing the same volume, but you're prioritizing those low intensity endurance sessions. And then if you just don't have time for them, you either move or you skip the high intensity stuff. So at least make sure you're moving in the right direction. You're still moving in the direction of increased endurance, okay? And I guess on the flip side, if you're more of like an e-racer or a crit racer, those high intensity sessions might be more important than kind of banking huge amounts of volume. You know, your longer endurance rides are always going to be important because you have to balance out that high intensity stuff with low intensity training, but just kind of the split might just shift slightly depending on your goals. Or perhaps you might have specific high intensity sessions within a set of maybe 3 high intensity sessions a week that are more important than the other high intensity sets. Okay, so you, as I say, identify those key sessions and make sure you get them done. Everything else can be compromised. Also, another thing, top tip, in terms of getting from A to B, achieving those goals, you have to accept that things will change. No plan's perfect and can't be executed perfectly. Okay, there will be problems along the way, and you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to change either your approach or the goal itself. So ensure that goal is realistic, it's achievable and exciting still, and that will help you kind of stick with it rather than constantly switching from goal to goal, which is something we see fairly often. Athletes flip from goal to goal before they start working with us because the original goal either didn't really excite them or it wasn't achievable, and they were just kind of going through the motions until they got to a point where, you know, just came to a crunch time. So I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. Just taking stock of where we are. Yeah, we've absolutely flown down that descent. No worries. Thanks for joining, guys. Also, if you didn't need it, if you didn't already know, of course, always feel free to drop in and out of these sessions as you wish. obviously hopefully you stay for the whole of the coaching feed, but once we hit the hour mark I drop away, and you can either stay with or you can carry on with the ride. So just remember, just use these sessions for whatever you want. So as I said a moment ago, no plan is going to be perfect. Just make sure it's one that really excites you, it's specific, and will keep your focus. So you're not just switching from goal to goal every time things get a little bit challenging or messy. As I said earlier, that's one of the things we often have to deal with when we take athletes on board. They've got a bit of a history of kind of half completed objectives, and it's finding a way to distill that and get them to the finish line, literally or metaphorically. Now, some of the reasons why people don't get from A to B, don't complete that goal, it can be picking the wrong event, or they pick a totally inappropriate challenge. I said earlier about making sure it fits within your life. I think one of the most common reasons why people don't complete goals is because they're not realistic over what their life is actually like, particularly their time availability or kind of the circumstances that they find themselves in. So just to kind of discuss a couple, one we often come by is people with very busy jobs, not necessarily understanding what their time availability is like. Usually they're high achievers, usually they're used to being good at everything, and so they have no reason to think that they wouldn't be good at whatever sport or event they've chosen. And it just comes down to literally not enough hours in the day, and it can be quite tough for people that aren't used to failing, and it become a huge layer of stress. And so one of the things when you're setting your goals, do make sure it fits within what you're kind of able to put towards that goal. Okay, so one of the things we always recommend is doing a time availability chart. So literally just get 7 days written on a piece of paper, and then just go through each day and work out kind of what you tend to do when. So what time do you wake up in the mornings, when do you have breakfast? You can go into super granularity, but just go through each day. So say you do like a class on a Monday or something, that's taking up an hour, or you have to pick up the kids from school every day, that's potentially an hour and a half, whatever. I think when you do that, you go through your week, work out and put down all the things that you do on a weekly or regular basis, you'll quickly see how rapidly your time can disappear. And so when you are considering your goals, I think it's a really important thing to do. Something we do pretty much with all our athletes, because it's a really useful tool for kind of managing expectations. And that's ultimately what you're trying to do with yourself. So if you haven't done that recently, or you're thinking about a challenge or an event or a goal, honestly do it. It'll take you 10-15 minutes, and it can save a lot of heartache and a lot of money as well. Because you think about you're signing up for a major event, they're usually pretty costly, might involve foreign travel, and so if it's not appropriate for you, it can be a costly mistake to make for the just 15 minutes of your time working out what your week is like in reality, rather than what you'd like it to be like. Because that's actually something we do with athletes. We'll get them to say kind of what we'll get them to talk us through their normal training week. We'll ask them how much time do you typically have to train, and then separately we'll then get them to do the time availability chart and just see if the two match up. And generally often they do, but sometimes they don't. And then you sort of drill down to it, and it's like, well, actually they like to do a bike on a Wednesday evening, but realistically they can only do it a couple of times a month, you know, something like that. So you've got to always test the image that you present, maybe to yourself, with the image in reality. Okay, as I say, it can save you a lot of time and money. So yeah, I guess that's coming down to ensuring that your goal is achievable, and then putting it through a practicality test. Right, where have we got to? Just have a little look at my notes. Okay, so kind of like one of our final points, because we've got just about 10 minutes left, is get help. Get help defining your goals, get help planning for it. It doesn't have to be a coach, obviously, that would be our primary recommendation. But it doesn't have to be, you know, just kind of saying to a loved one or a friend, you say, oh, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you reckon? You know, somebody that knows you well, particularly when it comes to time availability, you know, having somebody else kind of actually just saying it out loud to somebody can be clarifying for you. You know, you're saying like, oh, I can think there's so many different examples that you can when you say something out loud to somebody, it often sounds different to how it sounds in your head. You know, so when you say it out loud to someone, you actually sometimes realise how ridiculous something is, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. So just saying it out loud to somebody, you know, can quickly crystallise in your mind whether it's a good decision or not, and then having somebody just to interrogate your thoughts, and they can, again, just having somebody playing devil's advocate can help crystallise in your mind whether that goal is one for you. Now, of course, I've got to do my job and plug, but a coach can help with all of this, basically. As I say, it's one of the primary aspects of my role, is helping people to set goals, and then help them with the planning process and the execution. So basically a helping hand through the whole process. And a coach can, another thing, I think one of the major benefits of a coach is helping you to insert those short-term goals. You might already have an event, but inserting those short-term goals, that will just help you along the road and also keep you motivated. I think that's where a coach can add value, and then also help you keep things in perspective. Try and remind you of that ultimate goal. And again, that's a big part of my job, is, you know, particularly when athletes had a bad day or, you know, picked up a niggle or something, just reminding them that yes, you might have had, you know, a crit this weekend, but actually your goal is like that big road race at the end of the season. And so, you know, it's best that we get you healthy again, and yeah, just keeping you apprised of kind of what it's all about, the big picture. Because even as an individual myself, you know, that's, I think we struggle to kind of to keep that big picture in mind, and that's, as I say, you know, somewhere where other people can kind of help you. For my instance, my girlfriend's really good at just sort of saying to me, you know, is that what you would suggest to your athletes? And if it's no, then of course I know I'm being an idiot. But as I say, coach can really help you kind of through the whole process and keep kind of one eye on the big picture, and stop you from kind of making some of the more ridiculous mistakes that we are all inclined to make when left to our own devices. So yeah, that's kind of the plug that I always going to make. If you are interested in coach assistance, then there's various kind of relationships we offer. We have got the on-demand plans and workouts, but our main kind of services are bespoke coaching, both as supervised and unsupervised. So just head to the website if you're interested in any of that. It's not just me, we have got other coaches, so if you're sick of hearing my voice, you can get you somebody that you're more in tune with. But ultimately, guys, when it comes to goals, there's just a quick little recap of what we talked about. You've got to make sure your goal is super specific, ideally quantifiable, and has a time frame attached to it. You know, you have to have a little bit of time pressure. I know you probably all experienced it with work. You have something kind of a bit rubbish you don't want to do, and you only end up doing it when it comes, you know, like the day before or a week before or whatever, and you're like, crap, I have to do this now. It's the same with kind of athletic goals. You know, you need time pressure. Make sure it really excites you. I can't stress that enough, because I just see it time and time again. Athletes picking events or saying they want to do something, but ultimately they're not that bothered. And if you're not sure, take your time. You know, talk to people and throw ideas around. But as I say, really make sure it's something that's going to get you out of bed, because life's too short to kind of go through the motions. So, and as I always say, this stuff is meant to be fun. So make sure whatever it is kind of really gets you going. Work out how you're going to get there. So that A to B, that plan of action. And within that, just remember, you're looking for consistency, not perfection. Okay? You want to get to A to B, but you don't have to hit every single step on the way. It's not a linear process. Okay? As much as we would like it to be that nice and neat, it's not. Life is messy. Okay? So always keep one eye on the main goal and do what you need to keep progressing. Don't obsess about individual sessions. Hit those key ones and you'll keep moving in the right direction. So work out how you're going to get there. And then finally, get help. Whether it's a coach or just a friend or whatever. You know, talk this stuff through with people. You know, when it comes to deciding on your goal, at least, it might just help crystallize things in your mind and just kind of help you figure out whether it's a good idea or not. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say really on goals and why they're important, and a few little tips on how to get to A to B. But if there's anything specific people want to know about, it doesn't have to be related to what we're discussing this evening. If there's anything in particular you want to ask, now that you've got the opportunity, please do so. I've got a few minutes left, and I'll always hang on for a few minutes afterwards if people do have particular questions. Just a reminder, you can use the Zoom chat, unmute yourself, the RGT chat, or you can leave comments on the live stream. But otherwise, guys, imagine if you are on an RGT right now, you're at 12%. Just seen that gradient. I think I might be getting more abuse on social media after this. Hopefully you enjoyed it a little bit, and just remember you can always turn the training difficulty down. But we're nearly at the top. Only about 5Ks of the whole route to go. But yeah, stick around for a little bit, guys. Do feel free to hit me with your questions. Otherwise, just enjoy the rest of your ride. If you enjoy these sessions and you want some more, remember, head to the on-demand page on our website. We've got tons of these. We've got 3 whole series of cycle seminars, which are much the same as this. We'll have a coaching feed, and then we also provide a workout. If you ever guys want to redo these routes, just drop us a line. We can send you the magic road code. All right, always very happy to do that. Some of these routes you might be up for, but perhaps you're on an active recovery day, you want to do it another time. Don't be afraid to ask. One point I was making earlier about kind of I don't know how to put this, so I don't want to insult anyone because it's not meant to be pejorative. But if you find yourself that I think probably the classic example of someone that might benefit from setting himself a goal, you see it more on Zwift than RGT, because RGT tends to be either joining specific events or, you know, workouts, but particularly on Zwift, you do get quite a few people who just go and ride. And again, I'm not trying to criticize or put anyone down. I do think though that just going and riding a same course or a different course every single session, don't get me wrong, it has a very, very good place in a training plan, and in terms of helping build endurance, etc. This is not me saying don't go and ride a course and enjoy the social element of it. That's not what I'm saying. My point is, if you're doing that every single time you get on a bike, you might benefit from setting yourself a specific goal. But ultimately, I guess it all really comes down to how bothered you are. And if you're enjoying what you're doing, then, you know, there's no way I'd stop anyone or suggest doing otherwise. Got to enjoy it all. But if you do find yourself kind of just going on a bike, not really feeling like you've got a purpose to your session, and you feel like that on a regular basis, set yourself a goal. Get in touch. You can always sign up to one of our free 15-minute coach consultations, and we can help point you in the right direction in terms of training plans, etc. But yeah, give yourself something to aim for, guys. But there you go. I'll leave it on that one. Just going to get to, actually we've still got a little bit of the climb to go, and it's about to ramp up, isn't it? So I think this is probably a good time for me to disappear as you guys get into the real tough final push of the climb. But thanks for your company, everyone. If you have any questions you think of after the session, do drop us a line, email, or on social media. And again, if you've got any particular topics you'd like us to cover in future sessions, please do drop us a line. We've done quite a few sessions now actually, which are off the back of requests, so we do listen, and it also helps us as well in terms of, you know, it's motivating when you're talking about something that people really care about or really interested in. So do feel free to hit us, guys. Otherwise, yeah, enjoy the rest of your ride and the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone. Take care.